It's a very amusing parable in this morning's gospel. At least I think it's we don't know if Jesus told jokes. Well, partly because it's very difficult to understand the humour of another culture, another era. But also, of course, writing the Gospels, they've got more important things to do about than to write about. But listen to this parable. I think Jesus meant it partly. Anyway, listen. It's in chapter 18 of St. Luke's Gospel. Jesus told his disciples a parable about the need to pray continually and never lose heart. There was a judge in a certain town, he said, who had neither fear of God nor respect for human beings. In the same town, there was a widow who kept on coming to him and saying, "I want justice from you against my enemy." For a long time he refused. But in the end he said to himself, "Maybe I have neither fear of God nor respect for other people. But since she keeps pestering me, I must give this widow her just deserts, or she will persist in coming and worry me to death." And the Lord said, "You notice what the unjust judge has to say. Now will God refuse justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night, even when he delays to help them? I'm promising you, he will see justice done to them and done speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will he find any faith on earth?" Nagging God. What an idea. Well, that's what it comes to. Obviously, I don't suppose he's encouraging people to be naggers, but applying the parable, pray to God and keep on praying. And he says, even when he delays in answering. But it's an image to be constantly on and on at God. I came across a very moving letter which was published a few years ago. This is written by a Jewish woman in Belgium, I think it was, when the Gestapo were arresting people to send them to concentration camps, and she just managed to get her child out before they came in, knowing that she would be dead herself before long. And she wrote a letter which she pinned inside the girl's dress, and the girl kept it, although she could never remember her mother. And in the letter she says this, and you can just imagine, now, even though you don't see us, we are watching you. She talks about her husband and herself. Every time you have troubles, we are pounding on the door to God's very throne room, insisting on an audience and demanding mercy for our little Mirelle on earth, alone without her parents, and God will listen to us. Pounding on the door of God's throne room, demanding an audience. That's the image, a bit like Jesus, one nagging at him. What he's saying is, don't give up, keep on praying. Do you notice, right at the beginning it said, it was a parable teaching people the need to pray continually and never lose heart. I don't find people really lose heart. If they're praying for somebody who's ill or something, they pray and pray and pray, even when God doesn't seem to answer. But if there's nothing as urgent as that, they can drift away and not pray. And Jesus is saying, you need to pray. Have you noticed when you pray for something, God does not answer straight away. He seems purposely to keep us waiting. If he's going to answer the prayer, why not straight away? I think because as you go on praying, something happens to you in the process. Something happens to us. We need to pray. This is what Jesus says. God doesn't need us to pray. We need it. Like we need food. You know, sometimes if there's an old man or old woman living on their own, might be a relative, we worry, are they getting enough to eat? Perhaps they don't bother and leave it. We have to make sure they get enough to eat. Or one thing you get in England, where I used to live, where it gets bitterly cold at times, to make sure they keep the heating on in the house. They might not bother or might turn it down. No. One way we did it was this. If we were worried about an old man or woman not getting enough heating, we used to give them a budgie in a cage. And they looked after the budgie for us. But we'd say, if the temperature goes down, we gave them a thermometer, if the temperature of the room goes down, that budgie's going to die. You must keep it up. And that makes them keep up. They need the heat. We need to pray. We need prayer. In the process, something happens to us. The trouble is, the way we're taught, most of us feel we have to do the praying. We're doing it. Asking God, saying God, someone's ill. He knows they're ill. Asking for what we want. He knows what we want. We need to say it. Not only asking for things. Do you know the prayer we have in the Mass? We praise you, we bless you, we adore you, we glorify you. All those words mean the same, I think. As I say it or sing it, my relationship with God is changing. Something is happening within myself. Prayer is really a time you put yourself directly under God's influence. Not what you do. If you get a talk on prayer, of course they'll tell you what to do during that period. Suppose you're going to pray for 10 minutes. Well, you might say the rosary, you might say prayers, you might read a psalm, you might read a piece of the Bible, you might just sit and talk to the Lord, you might say thank you, you might say sorry. But prayer is God influencing you. And when you get doing it, as you go on, sometimes it gets terribly distracted. But don't worry about that. Try to get rid of the distractions, but let the power of God flow into you. Sometimes where I'm living, I pray outside. I looked up one day and I looked at a cloud, and it was a fantastic image. It looked like a man drinking, quite extraordinary. I thought I'd go and get my camera. No, if I went to get my camera, I'm giving in to the distraction. That's not helping me. But I could look at the cloud and praise God and say, thank you for what you're doing. That distraction leads me to God. To go and get a camera, no, that disturbs it. But sometimes I get so distracted, at the end, I wonder if I'd prayed. You've given the time to God, and the power of God is working. You know, when you got married, if you got married, supposing you were pronouncing your marriage vows, I take you to be my loving wife or husband. And supposing while you're making, you get terribly distracted, I forgot the rings. Or the cake is still at home, or something silly. You're still married. The power of God is still working. When you pray, it's a period of time in which God influences you directly and something happened to you. And Jesus' parable was about the need to pray. The need to go on praying even when it says God delays to reply, to keep us going. So if you get a talk on prayer, they normally tell you what to do during that time. What about sitting on the beach? Is that a prayer? If you want it to be. Sometimes a scenery is so beautiful. I live in a place overlooking the sea, and people come on here for what we call retreats for a week or so. And often they look out, and Psalm 8, I know it now, I've said it so often. How great is your name, O Lord, God, through all the earth. When I see the heavens, the work of your hands, the moon and the stars which you have created, what am I that you bear me in mind? It is so beautiful. It's not a distraction. It leads people to the Lord. Something is happening while I say the words. It's the power of God flowing into me. Do you know that hymn? O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hand has made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, oh my God, how great thou art. You're carried away by that. But sometimes you're praying, and if you're loyal to it, nothing happens. Stay with it. That's what the Lord means by losing heart. You need the prayer. And some of the great saints battled with that, or accepted it. You know, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, that very holy, generous woman, for nearly 30 years she could not feel the presence of God. Sometimes you feel it. If you go on praying, the pattern you'd hear is you feel it less. And I think it's almost God saying, do you want me, or do you want the lovely feeling that comes with it? Well, I want both. No, but why are you doing it? Is it that God may flow into you, or because you just enjoy that time? You probably have had times when you really felt the touch of God. It's really touched you, and you can feel it. But go beyond that. Open your heart to let the power of God flow into you. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, I pray all day. Driving along, I talk to the Lord, or with the kids, I talk to the Lord. Yes, that's a help. But the need to pray is that each of us needs to give a bit of time, a period of time, to the Lord. What you do during that time is anything which will open your heart to God. We need that as we need food. We need that to be really people of God. And don't worry if it gets even boring, or you get nowhere, or you're saying the same old thing every time. Give the time to God. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, decide beforehand and stay with it. Allow God to touch you. I use a Celtic blessing for that. In the silence of the stars, in the quiet of the hills, in the heaving of the sea, speak to us, Lord. In the voice of a friend, in the babbling of children, in the words of a stranger, speak to us, Lord. In opening a book, in listening to music, in conversation with friends, speak to us, Lord, for your servants are listening.